Good evening everyone, Ragewood here, back with another Godforge video, and today's video is part 2 of the content creator leaks that we got. Now, I've decided to split this because as I was editing and recording, the video would have been almost an hour, and I thought I'm trying to get into the habit of making things into more manageable chunks for you guys to watch, so you don't have to then sort of keep an evening free to watch my content. No one's got time for that. So it's going to feel like I'm jumping right into it, if that makes sense. But that is because, as I say, we have chopped it up a little bit. So do bear with on that one. But without further ado, let's get back into it. Okay, so here we have some animations. Now, 2 of these we have seen before, 1 we have not. So we'll start with the most recent. Okay, so the most recent one is this Radiant one over here. We saw that in Brian's video with Guan Yu, and they talk about how animations come sort of together. Now, this one in the middle is interesting as well. I think it's interesting that we look at the title up here. Okay, so this is obviously VFX Shield. Now, is that the name of the ability? Okay, because we've got VFX Radiance, VFX Regen, which is this thing over here, which is possibly like some sort of heal over time. I'm getting very much like an Avalon feel with the grass and sort of the druidic vibe that we've got going on there. Radiance feels like, say, like a holy light spell, healing, or potentially a buff. This shield animation could be literally a shield. You know, it could also be like an increased defense animation. So when you put increased defense on yourself, that is what could come up, because obviously shields are used for defending. So really interesting there. I say shield, regen, radiance. Are they the name of the abilities? Are they not? Who knows? And then looking around at everything else, they've done a very good job at hiding it all over this side. So there isn't too much to deduce there, but really cool seeing some of the VFX on these abilities come to life. So next, arrowing along, this looks like the world map or the campaign map, okay? And I love this. I think this is fantastic. There are 2 things wrong with it, though. Okay. There is no way that this is Camelot and that this is Asgard. Okay, that's just not happening, okay? Now, I don't know whether they've had to do it this way because they couldn't have the mountain. You can't see what I'm pointing, but whether because they couldn't have this sort of mountain over here, that they've had to do it this way, or whether they are just the wrong way round. But that is not Camelot, and this is not Asgard. Unless Ragnarok has already happened, I think the flags are the wrong way round on here, okay? That's my first observation. Now, if I press play and we let them scroll through, you've got obviously the various monuments or things that we associate with these mythologies, these pantheons. So you've got the Parthenon of Athens, obviously the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Sfaga, that's another temple there, possibly, I can't remember what it's called, but a temple. Obviously Japanese temple castle there, like the Mayan pyramid, for example, something that you might see at Chichen Itza. Jade Empire, again, same with Babylon over there. So it's a nice sort of scroll through. There's only one thing that I wish they had done with this sort of thing, and that is the summoning animation. And when we were first talking about it ages ago, you know, I said what I would like to see if I was making it is all of these sort of monuments and things that you associate with the factions on the horizon in the background. So, you know, Parthenon, pyramid, all these kind of things, and then the hammer, whatever it is, comes down, the rune or whatever flies up into the sky, into the night sky, where the gods and celestials are, and then they would drop down from there. This is my opinion, obviously. My opinion does not reflect that of everyone's. Some people might think that sucks, but I don't like the sort of the hyperdrive thing that there is there. I like the hammer coming down and all that, but I would have implemented these to show the different actions and things. But this is stunning. You cannot take that away from them. This world map is incredible. Really, really incredible. I love it. I think it looks fantastic and is great for the game. A couple of interesting things here. Saf has pulled Zeus. Pulled, or has he used his cheat code? Which I've been told is 2 asterisks, up, down, WD, exclamation mark, question mark, to summon Zeus. So make sure you remember that when you are summoning your void shards, or whatever they're called in the game, crystals. We also have heroes. So this is obviously going to be your squad list, like you would have in Raid or any other game. We then also have the Sanctum. Now, the Sanctum is interesting. I don't believe this is something that we have seen before, and I don't think it's something we'll see later, and obviously we'll come on to that in a minute. But it's interesting. What do I think of a Sanctum? When I think of Sanctum, I think of a safe place. But what's that got to do with the world map? I don't know. Possibly that is the normalised PvE area, the Sanctum of Ishtar, or whatever it was called. Perhaps you access it from here, who knows? And then down here we have our progress rewards, let's call them. So we're going to get some gold, going to get some rubies, 300 energy, and at the end of the normal campaign you get 3 rare summon crystals. Now obviously this is all subject to change. In fact, you can't quite see that because my head's in the way. I'll just move myself over. So yeah, see at the end here we get the 3 rare summon crystals. Yeah, all subject to change, alright, but similar to what you would expect and have seen in various other games. So now we have another really juicy thing here. So this is what I presume I say main screen. Oh, there you go. It says at the bottom, main screen Sanctum. So the Sanctum, this is it. So what we just talked about in the last one is not the normalised PvE mode. Ignore everything that I just said. This is your home, your base, that kind of thing. Now there is a lot here, and I know that my face is covering it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to shift myself off screen whilst I talk through this for a bit. Actually, do you know what? We'll cover all of this stuff up here first, and then we'll come down to this stuff. So Henry White, brother of Walter White, maybe? Who knows? Passes. We all know what passes are. We've seen them in many games now. I hope they'll do it like they all do, where there is a free version where you get still some good rewards, but perhaps not as good as the paid version. And I also hope the paid version is cheap. Dragonair did it, Raid do it, Watcher Realms, I think, possibly. Where, I say, it was somewhere between £5 and £10, or whatever that is in your local currency, for some just nice rewards. And I think it's great. The Raid's new Apprentice Pass is fantastic. Dragonair's one was good. Watcher, I haven't played for a very long time. But there's going to be passes. The game is going to be monetized because ultimately it is a business. It is not run for free. But I'm all for passes. I think they are great. Events. Again, there's always going to be events. Now, this might be where we find, their equivalent of tournaments as well as events. So, your champion training, your dungeon running, whatever they are. This is obviously going to be the location for them. Now, coming back down the outside, the journal, I'm not entirely sure, but my guess would be in a particular podcast with Brad Dirk and Dane. That was a really juicy one, by the way. I think it was episode 44. Go check it out. They were talking about the tutorial and how they don't want to handhold too much, but they do want like a library where players can refer back to go get information if they have forgotten how to level a hero, if they have forgotten how to ascend, whatever that might be. They had somewhere to go back to it. Now, I think potentially that might be your journal. Your journal, I guess another word for a diary. Some people journal every day. They write their thoughts down. It just seems like the logical place to put it. So that would be my guess there. Quests, these are going to be things like your dailies, your weeklies, all that kind of stuff. And missions isn't interesting one. Again, it will be similar to your Arbiter missions, where it'll be farm 5 arcane potions, then go kill Fafnir, then go kill the treasure golem, all that kind of stuff. Normal things that you would expect to see. You then have battle in the middle here. For being honest, I don't like it in the middle there, mainly because you're going to have, presumably, you're going to be able to click on all of these items as well. If you're like me and you got fat thumbs, fat with a PH, and sweaty and things, I can just see myself accidentally clicking one of these two or explanations rather than battle, and vice versa. Now, it might not be an issue. I can just see that happening for me. Now, continuing on around the outside, like 2 trailer park girls. We're going around the outside. Comment down below if you get the reference for which song that's from. Inventory. Now, inventory isn't something you normally see in, like, Raid, for example, unless it is where your gear is. Now, if this is just another word for your gear, I completely get that. That's fine. But inventory I normally associate with things like Skyrim, for example, where in your inventory you have potions and you have, I don't know, weapons and all that kind of stuff. So we do know there's going to be a weapons system in Godforge. Perhaps this is where we come to look at those. Or perhaps there are going to be other items that we don't know about, like Dragonaire's artifacts. Again, I believe similar to the weapon system, but they also have like all of their ascending gems and potions and all that kind of stuff in like your backpack in Dragonair. This could also be the thing for that. It could be where your spare imprints are and all that kind of jazz. Just one place to store, let's call it, miscellaneous items that you don't want like a million different areas for. That could all fall into your inventory. Index seems pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be all the heroes in the game, whether you own them or not, all going to be listed, various factions, all that kind of stuff. Heroes, our current rosters. Shop, self-explanatory. You're going to buy your shard packs, you're going to buy all that kind of stuff. And special offers, again, these are going to be like your lightning deals, which I actually think personally are really bad. This is super cheap, buy it now, if you click away it's gone forever. I don't like that kind of predatory tactic. Now, I'm not saying they will do that, and maybe this is just the timer for your first time you're buying crystals, you get doubled, something like that. I hope it's just not one of these kind of lightning offers that you see in Raid. But again, there will be offers and things for you to purchase and spend your money, because there has to be. That's the long and short of it. Again, it is a business. So, then we come to all the other stuff. So, I'll talk about this first before I move myself back over. So, explorations. Now, what I imagine this to be is to get to, for example, the world map we've just been to get to normalized PvE mode, whatever that is called, just to get to other places in the game. Clan boss, maybe. Other let's say again, little menus, things like that aren't blatantly obvious. I think this is where we're going to go to get that. You know, you're leaving town, you're leaving your sanctum to go out into the bigger world to fight your clan boss, to do your campaign runs. It might also be where the dungeons are located, and you know the world bosses. So I think all this is going to be under explorations. Move myself back quick. Battle. Now, battle, I think potentially is where we're going to get to PvP. I can't think of it being anything else. It could also be your campaign run, but I think they would just sort of link all that under here. So my guess would be this is accessing PvP. Quest board. Now, quest board is going to be different to your quests. What I believe this to be is similar to some of you, if you've ever played WoW and you have like your base, you can send your heroes off to fight imaginary missions to get rewards. And then when they're off doing that, you can't use them for other things. So this might be send 3 legendary heroes to get this particularly rare reward. It might be send 3 common and uncommon heroes to get something slightly lesser. And there'll be X amount throughout the day, and there'll be varying difficulties requiring certain heroes, factions, perhaps even class types, maybe even alliance types. Like we need 3 legendary heroes, we need an invoker, we need a disruptor and a brawler. We need 2 chaos and 1 alliance member from these different factions. Whatever it might be, that's what I think we're going to see here. In fact, what I'll do is I'll pause it and see if I can pull something up just over the top, just so you can see what I mean. So I did find what I was looking for. This is the sort of thing that I think the quest board is going to be. Now, this is, again, a World of Warcraft one, because that was the first thing I thought of, where, again, we'll have, I don't know, this might be the 3 Sisters of Fate, for example, and one of them will require you to bring this could be Olympus Alliance, this could be Svarga Chaos, and this could be a Disruptor, you know, that is level 50, whatever it might be, and then you get a certain amount of XP for them and a certain amount of treasures. And I think this is going to be another way of leveling your heroes without actually having to level them, like in a passive way or semi-passive way. For example, this will take 8 hours, but there will be easier ones, and that's what I think the quest board is going to be. And if it is, I think that's really cool, really exciting. I don't think I've seen it in a game like this before, so I do have my fingers crossed for that, and hopefully it will scale with your level. But yeah, that is what I think the quest board will be. So next we come to the Godforge. Now, we have seen the Godforge before in one of Simon's YouTube videos. What I'll do is I will just pop it just sort of up there just for a second, just as a quick reminder. Actually, do you know what? Instead of bringing it up, let's just take a look at the YouTube video. So this was in the Godforge. Okay, we had Summoning of Heroes, we had the Weapon Forge, which I believe to be similar to Raid's Relic system, and the artifacts in Dragonair, and they did even confirm that on our podcast that the weapons are going to be a separate slot to your regular gear. We have Imprint Extraction and Imprint Transmutation. Now, personally, I think this might change slightly, or at least it would do if I was doing it. This Weapon Forge, I don't think will be in the Godforge, quote unquote, or at least I don't think it should be. And we'll have a history lesson in a minute as to why. So I think we'll just see Summon Heroes and the Imprint Extraction and the Imprint Transmutation, stuff to do with heroes. Now, even though you, again, I think you imprint heroes indirectly through the weapon system, as showcased here, I think these lot will all be together in the Godforge, and I think that's all we will see in the Godforge. Summoning and these two. So, next thing I want to talk about is the Forge of Wayland. Okay, now to some of you, this name doesn't really mean a lot, okay? But Wayland, or Wayland the Smith, is actually like a Germanic folklore or folk hero, I suppose you can call him. He's also mentioned in Beowulf briefly as well, sort of the maker of weapons and armour. It goes back a very, very long time, and I think the story goes he was kidnapped by a king. He killed a family member and had crafted some sort of contraption to fly away and escape, which I think is pretty cool. Sort of, again, they're keeping even all the names and things relatable to gods, myths, and legends. So that's why I think potentially the weapon forge will move here. Like, Wayland, again, is a pretty big deal, and so I could see the weapon forge moving here. Also in here, I can see being, your standard gear crafting, like perhaps you see in Raid with perception and resilience and stone skin and all that kind of stuff. I think all weapons and gear is going to be in this forge of Wayland just here. Now, the chapter hall, I think it's going to be very similar to the Great Hall in Raid, in that, this is where you will spend currency to upgrade things. A chapter hall, if we think back to even something like the Knights Templar, this is where they'd all come to hang out and improve as people and things like that. Again, just me thinking this is where I'll be, like a college frat house or fraternity, something like that. This is where you all sort of come, chill out, improve, and I think it's going to be similar to Raid's Great Hall, because don't forget, this game is going to be heavily influenced by Raid. It's where a lot of the creators have come from, or their background is. So that's what I think we're going to see there. The Market and the Wandering Merchant. Now, these are interesting because they are essentially one and the same, but I just think they're going to differ slightly. So, the Market, this could quite simply be like you have in Raid, where you will come and buy random items that reload every hour in the form of common shards, gear, common heroes, all that kind of thing. I also hope they do it like Raid's most recent update, where you also come spend your clan gold here, your token trader is here, or whatever their equivalent is. I think that is all going to be there in this market. The Wandering Merchant, I think, is going to be a temporary thing on a certain time scale. Now, I've played a lot of a game called Warframe, and in Warframe, there is a merchant that sells special gear that sort of appears up in different places every so often, and you use something called platinum to buy some of his stuff. Platinum being a premium currency, like gems in Raid Shadow Legends, for example. So I think, now I'm not saying everything that this guy's going to sell, or this Wandering Merchant, is going to be premium currency led. I don't think that's the way that the game is pinpointing, but I think this is where we're going to be getting special stuff. Okay. I also think that if the option to trade with friends and things comes in, I think this might also be the place they do it, because they can schedule it. Schedule, whichever word it is. So the Wandering Merchant might only appear once a month, and when he appears, he brings void shards, sacred shards, and he might bring a trade scroll, something like that, where you have to purchase it. You can only purchase one a month, and it can only be used with friends, and that scroll grants the ability to trade gear, heroes, whatever it might be, on a limited number. It could be one hero use, and you could buy 4 gear trade scrolls, or something like that. That's what I think this Wandering Merchant is going to be. I think it's going to be a time-limited special place to buy and exchange things. Right. And then lastly, we come to the Well of the Divine. Now I left this one last because, quite frankly, I have been scratching my head over it. And I cannot think what it is. Now, Well of the Divine. Now, when I think of that just as a concept, divine obviously refers to gods, that kind of thing. And a well of something is like a well of water. You go there to grab water. So, well of the divine, I almost think of like god elixir or, something along those lines. It's really puzzling, and it's the one thing that I've got no clue on. Not at all. Because we've covered where I think PvP is going to be, and exploration and things. Maybe it's normalised PvP. Maybe. But, I can't think of, like, is it catchphrase where it's like, say what you see, sort of thing. I'm trying to think simplistic on what Well of the Divine might be. And say, for the life of me, cannot think what that is going to be. So that is a piece of intrigue for me, something I'm looking forward to finding out. Simon, if you're watching, perhaps in one of your next Fateless videos, you share with us what the Well of the Divine is, please. Hint. Or, Well of the Divine could be gifts from the gods. Maybe my Forge of Wayland's wrong, and this is where we come to get our artifacts, our weapons, rather than over in the Forge of Wayland. Yeah, really puzzled by that one, but I guess gives me something to look forward to. So from there, the next slide is some of the buildings perhaps in another light. So, for example, the Godforge is different to the one we see here. It's a similar concept. You've got that henge feel. Now, whether it's Stonehenge, it could also be something else. There are a lot of henges in the world. But, yes, similar concepts. I think I prefer the Godforge on this one. But it's a lot wider, so it's a case of how is that going to affect your sanctum, your town. And that's really important to me because King Arthur and Watcher of Realms, I hate their towns. They're very dark, they feel quite enclosed to me. Whereas Raid has got that quite light feel. And I like that, and I like the fact that they put Christmas things and stuff around. So, whilst I prefer this as a design, how feasible it is, I don't know. Well of the Divine, again, it might not have changed, truth be told. This just might be a very simpler version, just the case of getting it on the screen, right? The market, that's definitely different. I don't think it needs to be this big. I think something just like this looks a bit like an auction house. You could just have the tents, that's also fine. The Forge of Wayland, this looks quite modern, quite steampunky. I think I actually prefer this kind of old school smithy kind of feel. I mean, that's what Wayland was. He was like a Neolithic smith, that sort of folk hero, sort of that era. So this is what I would like to see, and I think this is stunning. The Wandering Merchant, yeah, just a travelling cart. And that looks very basic. I prefer this. And the Chapter Hall, I think both would do very nicely. This looks more like a monastery rather than a chapter hall. Now, the Templars were holy knights fighting for Christianity and all that, so there is an argument to have that instead. Yeah, unsure on those two. I wouldn't be against either one of those. So the next screen after this one looks like more of the same. We have the main screen Stonehenge Sanctum Separated Element Designs version 6. So this is obviously more final designs of how it's going to look. Personally, the quest board, I think... Oh no, it is the same. I thought it looked different. Okay, no, fine. I thought that looked way different. I don't know if I like that as a quest board. Actually, now I see it like that. It's like, in fact, it's not even a round table after Arthur. It's a square table with a globe and things. Which I get, it's going to be different areas around the world. You're going to be doing these quests in Ika and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, don't know. Weather Divine, Love, I think looks great. Exploration Gate, I think looks fine. Godforge, I think looks great. Yeah, this is obviously what they've gone with. I'm glad they've gone with this as the Forge of Wayland. Chapter Hall, getting I've got no qualms over. Population. I'll just move myself over so you can see that. Population. Now, that scares me. Why does it scare me? So I'm not a fan of these almost like city builder concepts within the game. Like, some games you have to upgrade the castle to level 7, which costs X amount of resources to then progress in certain things. I've played a few of them in my time. You know, I can't remember what they're called now, but it's like, you know, Whiteout Survival, or, you know, the almost like the fake ads where the top war ones where you stood there down firing down this lane. They're all base builders and all that. I hate those. I cannot stand them. I really hope that this is not in Godforge. But the fact that we have population tents there makes me think that you're going to have to upgrade these in some sort of way to be able to progress. Like a pain point, if you want to call it. I really hope I'm wrong on that, but the fact that I see that there makes me think perhaps I'm not. Alternatively, it could be storage space for heroes. Now, if it is that, I'm okay with that. Rather than, your inventory, you can have 10 gods in your inventory, and then you've got to upgrade your population to then be able to store more heroes. That I'm fine with. Say these city builders within games, can't stand them, and I really hope that that's not the case. So that is one thing that did concern me. So moving on then, we then have Stonehead Sanctum version 4. So... oh, okay, so the layout is different. That is version... version 1. I said 6. But it could be version 1. More likely, this is... okay, it wasn't Roman numeral 6. It was version 4. Alright. So things have moved around. Saf is still pulling those Zeus's. If only he had this much luck on his raid account. So... there's a few things that I dislike about this. So I feel like the events and passes should be together. I don't know why. Move that up there or move the passes back. Everything else down the bottom has remained the same. My thoughts still remain the same regarding this, especially being so close to the Divine Wheel, which I imagine is just another in term for Well of the Divine. Do I prefer this layout compared to the first one? I like the first one, feels like it's inside a cave, like it is a proper sanctum, it's inside a mountain. And as I say, as long as it's not too dark, like, that's my main concern. Some of that feels a little bit claustrophobic, but I don't feel like this one's any better either. You still got the rocks, so it's still going to be in the same internal setting. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, as long as it's light, I think I prefer the first one, but I'd want it to be light. Like this one, I think these three are too bunched up. I like the fact that there's a bit of space down here, so if you do misclick, you got fat thumbs, you're not clicking anything down here. And perhaps that... I still think I'm leaning towards the first one. Maybe just because it's a bit more complete than this. This is very much a sketch drawing. But even so, I'd say it's probably like 55-45. Like, neither of them are jumping out at me like, it's got to be that one. So the next one, okay, this is a top-down view. This is a top-down view. Now I look at that. What do I think? Hold on, what am I going to do? I'm going to go raid quick. So how does... Spoiler alert, I'm back on my second account, or like main account if it were. I think as long as it's light, like this is quite clearly sunshine, that's inside a mountain, that does concern me. I think it's fine. This feels slightly top-down view raid, as opposed to... Hold on, let's bring these like together. No, actually, this is probably more similar to Raid. Perhaps it's slightly lower down than Raid. So, in that regard, because Raid is, for all its faults, the one that I prefer when it comes to sort of like camps or bastions, I think it perhaps wants to be somewhere in between this bird's eye view and the first one. Okay, but again, all that out the way. What do I think the layout on this one? I think the layout on this one works better from a top-down view in that I don't think there's too much surrounding this. I think this is fine. And it's probably going to be easier to click, I imagine. Saf's still pulling CC. Stop it. Yeah, don't hate this one. I'd have it a little bit lower, less vertically down, but slightly more maybe than version 1. I'm sure that's not helping them with the feedback they're looking for. Oh, right, okay, now I remember this. This is gorgeous. I want this as a poster as well. Like, I want it as my desktop background. I want it as, like, the main slider on my website. It gives me, like... If you were stood on a mountain, like if you stood on Mount Fuji looking down at Tokyo, that sort of skyline view with all the lights, but obviously these are lanterns, these are like the old school lanterns. I think this is beautiful, this art. Yeah, I would love to have it blown up on my wall. It's absolutely stunning. Yeah, no words, love it. So, but what do we see here? So, it's interesting that we're in Kojiki campaign stage 4, and you're getting a 4-star bonus for using Aru heroes only. I think that's a little bit weird, but then it could also just be, it might mean to say Kojiki, they just haven't got around to it yet, and that's fine, because it said the same thing on the Aru campaigns. The heroes here, I don't think there's anything we didn't know there. Did we know Arthur was strength? That is the one question I would have. I think we did. Hold on. Don't forget to use ragewoodgaming.com for all of your Godforge source needs. We will do this whilst we are recording live with you. Going to factions. By the way, I am trying to set up a search bar to make it easier for people to find heroes on my site who don't necessarily know what faction and everything they are in. However, whenever you type anything into the search engine, it pulls up every page I've ever made in order of date rather than looking for physical page titles, which is somewhat frustrating. I'm trying to get my head around it, so do bear with me on that one. That is the next thing. We did know that Arthur was Force, so that is not new. Up here, though, we do have... I think that is Horus as a Void character. Now, that is new. We definitely didn't know that, I don't think. Horus being a Void hero. We then have Odin, Anubis, Arthur, Hercules, Aphrodite, Kanoichi, Brynhild, Leonidas, Musashi, Mummy, Jackal. This one is new. Now, this is either going to be Med J, which I've put as a common character in Aru. That's not been confirmed, but the Med J were essentially shepherds of ancient Egypt. Or it could be like the Nubian warrior and things that we see in the Gamescom demo. It could be them too. My inkling is Med J though. Then we got Brazilian Archer that we did know as well. So outside of the Horus sort of affinity reveal, I guess we can call it, everything else seems pretty run of the mill and that we knew about it. I just love this artwork. I think it's stunning. Next picture is exactly the same. Or is this their test to... No, I'm not seeing any changes. They look exactly the same. And that's it for UI. So, okay. So, really cool to see. Some cool things looking, especially looking at the Sanctum. That is a nice, cool reveal, seeing all the way they're going to go. Not too much in terms of leaks this side, but it's quite nice to still get an insight into how things are going to potentially look. Obviously, it's all subject to change and they can do whatever they want between now and then. But if they keep it the same, it all looks pretty good in my eyes. And there we are. That is the end of today's video. So thank you for watching. I don't know when we're going to get the next leaks. I imagine it'll be 4 weeks from the release of this video, which is the 7th. So 4 weeks from then will probably be beginning of March. But do take care, look after yourselves, work hard, but as always, play harder. And I'll see you in another one soon. Cheers.